Hi, everyone. Welcome to our BC AdventureSmart webinar tonight. We're here to kick off winter with you and for you. That's why we have some special guests that are going to join us shortly. But as some of you come in through the waiting room and the numbers continue to climb nicely, we've got quite a few hundreds of you registered tonight. So as they roll in, I'll give a little overview of what we do and how we do it before we actually kick off, so we can get everyone joining us for that first part of our presentation. I'm grateful to be joining you tonight from the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people. I'm in the Lower Mainland here, and so is our tech support team tonight. Her name is Natasha. She's our assistant coordinator with the program. We're both located and grateful to be on this traditional territory. Natasha's going to run the show from behind the scenes, answer questions that come in, help go through our questions as you put them in the chat feature here and go to webinar, and help us with any tech support we need tonight from her. We're both part of this team. We have a team based in the interior that do field outreach. We have a team down here that work on data and special projects, curriculum development, outreach provincially. We are associated with the BC Search and Rescue Association through Emergency Management BC. So it is a provincial program that was started by the BC Search and Rescue Association 17 years ago. And the main reason it started was because they had then and now more search and rescue calls here in our province than anywhere else in the country. Currently, there's 1,900 search and rescue calls every year just in BC. 79 search and rescue groups full of unpaid professionals, all volunteers, that respond to those 1,900 calls. In total, there's about 3,000 volunteers that are search and rescue members. 2,500 of them are full-time members, and 500 are members in training. They're a busy group of first responders, and we're a busy group of outdoor educators. We're a team, we work together, we're collective, and we're here for you to educate you. And then those volunteers are here to help bring you home safe and sound if there's an emergency. Our winter safety series this year is crafted uniquely. We started it in the summer and then this winter as well. We wanted to really focus on the reasons for search and rescue. So we've used the data-driven insights. So all of those search and rescue calls, 1,900 of them, are entered into a data management system. It's onerous, it's a chore, it's administration, that's part of search and rescue too. And all of that data goes in based on subjects, personas, regions, causations, and all of that information is there for us to use to pull out and create outdoor education. Hence us crafting our winter series into sections of snowmobilers, which was last week. We had a great session with some awesome ambassadors from the snowmobile community. And then we also had a backcountry touring session, which was really highly attended and great success. And now tonight, snowshoeing. And we have another snowmobiling one this Thursday. And we chose those based on that data so that we can uniquely engage with those enthusiasts that are calling search and rescue a little bit more than others. And we know the reasons that they're calling. Okay, I think we're ready to roll. We've got quite a few of you here. We're grateful for all of your time tonight. Sit back, enjoy. Natasha's going to show us a quick little video, and then I'm going to ask you a poll question, and we're going to jump into our first guest. There we go. Okay, let's start off to learn a little bit more about all of you sitting out there. We know you're probably interested in snowshoeing or you wouldn't have signed up for tonight. But we wanted to toss up a poll question and hear a little bit more about the level of backcountry enthusiasts that you are. We know that throughout all of our outdoor education throughout the province, as we travel around, we learn from everybody, and we'd like to know what level of enthusiasts you are. So if you've never been outside before to go snowshoeing or hiking in the snow, maybe this is your start tonight, which is a good one if it is. Maybe not much, kind of infrequent here or there. Maybe you're keen and you get to go and are able to go 3 to 5 times a week, or you head out every weekend. And that's your thing. You finish work, you plan about it during the week, and then you hit those trails in that snow every weekend. I know when we asked this question last week, it was interesting to learn the results. So we're always excited to see what you tell us and share with us. And it gives us an idea of how active you are, and some of the other questions we'll learn a little bit more about you as well. We always like to see if people are brand new. We're really grateful that you've joined us tonight. If you're sitting there with friends or family in our outdoor club, or your sisters or your partners, and if this is the start, it's a great start. So we have a low number there for never been, okay, 6%. Not much, infrequent, 19, 45, thrill, your active group, 3 to 5 times a winter, which isn't bad. And then every weekend, which is quite a bit, 30%, that's high, that's great. Okay, that gives us a good idea, and that'll help our special guests who are watching these polls as well. As we jump into and I introduce our first guest, Mountain Skills Academy is joining us tonight, which we're really, really excited about. We have Corey joining us. He's one of their AST instructors. He's speaking to you tonight from their perspective. And they reside in the home of the Sea to Sky's most unique and exhilarating adventures. There's so much to do, as most of us here know, up the Sea to Sky corridor. It's just a plethora of adventure, and it's such easy access to all this different terrain. Their professional certified guides have been taking guests on unique adventures for 30 years, from Via Ferrata and glacier adventures to backcountry and rock climbing tours and AST courses. They have something for everyone. Their industry leaders are offering Avalanche skills training that introduces you to fundamental, critical pieces to safe backcountry travel. Corey's going to share a few tips and tricks tonight, and some insights from his perspective and his lens. And Corey, welcome to the BC AdventureSmart virtual table. And we appreciate your time. And you're welcome to turn on your camera and join us here, and then I'll pass the baton your way. While we're waiting for Corey to join us, just to let you know, you can put your questions into the chat there. Natasha may put some links in there as well as all of our guests talk, and we'll go through your questions at the end of each presenter and then lead into the next. Hi, Corey. You're muted, Corey. If you could just unmute, that would be great. Thank you.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Absolutely. I'm going to shut off, and the stage is yours. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you so much for the introduction, Sandra. Yeah, so I'm Corey. I am an Avalanche skills instructor with Mountain Skills Academy. She gave us a pretty wonderful introduction. We lead AST courses and all sorts of backcountry adventures all through the Sea to Sky corridor. And I'm here to share you some of the expertise that I've built in my career going through Avalanche Train, and hopefully inspire you to go on your own learning path and see a little bit about snowshoeing. Cool. So what is snowshoeing? While looking at a video, we see our skiers and snowmobilers, and there's a bit of a barrier to entry to both of those sports. You have to learn how to ski, learn how to snowmobile. The beauty of snowshoeing is most of us can walk freely, easily. All you need is one purchase and you have snowshoes and you are ready to hit the backcountry. Or are you? What I'm here to point out is the risks of avalanche terrain, and hopefully just a little bit of a primer to set yourself on a way to start managing this avalanche terrain a little bit better. So yeah, the absolute basics of identifying avalanche terrain is what I'm covering. And hopefully by the end, we can take a look at a slope and say, oh, yeah, this could be avalanche terrain. Our very first thing we look at is slope steepness. So down here, we can see we have a 30-degree angle this is when our avalanche terrain starts. And something to note is we as humans, we're terrible at estimating slope angles. This is a skill that I have built up through years of experience to start to recognize what these slope angles are. However, when I first started, I'd play a game with myself. I would look at a slope and say, oh, yeah, I think that's maybe 25 degrees. Then I would measure it and found out that I was well off. So it's a great skill to start looking for these different slope steepnesses and characteristics early on. And within a year or so, you'll start to get a very good keen eye of what is and what isn't avalanche terrain. The other thing we can note is while we're doing our trip plan, we can look on mapping softwares and put an overlay on to see what the steepness is within that terrain. And we have parts of an avalanche. Every avalanche will have these 3 specific characteristics. We have our start zone, which is where an avalanche will start. It's a self-descriptive name and it's great and easy to understand. And then we have our track. So that's the path on the mountain that the snow will run through. So your avalanche starts within the start zone and the snow starts coming down the mountain through the track. Then finally, we have our run out or deposit zone, and that's where all of that snow is going to pile up at the base of the avalanche track. Knowing this, when we're planning our routes, knowing the 3 parts of the avalanche equation, where the avalanche can happen, can help us plan and avoid this terrain when we're out snowshoeing in the backcountry. Yeah, here we have our snowshoer down in the bottom left there, looking at a potential avalanche path. The number one way the snowshoer could manage this situation is to just completely avoid the path in general. Even if you have no idea how an avalanche is going to form or what your risk is on the day, if you don't put yourself in the way of danger by not going into the path, then you are clear from that danger. So one thing to ask yourself when you're seeing these potential paths is that a steep enough slope to cause an avalanche? Is this something that I'm going to be able to see happen on this slope? Or am I seeing an open spot of snow, but the terrain is flat and it's just not steep enough to cause an avalanche? And what I'd really like to put home today is that terrain does not have to be wildly steep to cause an avalanche. Yeah, and here we see a couple more features and a couple more technical words that we use in the industry, and giving you a bit broader scope of an idea on what you can see in avalanche terrain. So I'll start off with a couple features that can raise the risk and make the outcome worse if an avalanche is to strike. So looking on the far right, we have a gully, and the picture is showing that an avalanche has happened in that slope, and we can see how it's filled up the gully. So if you have gullies at the base of potentially avalanche-prone slopes, this is what we call a terrain trap, which is a feature in the terrain that can increase the consequences of an avalanche happening. So that's something that our mind is going to spark again, saying, oh, this is something I might want to avoid. I see that gully here. Maybe there's a better way around this. And further over in the middle here, we have our convexity. A convex shape within a slope is a very common trigger point for avalanches. And another thing to look at and say, hey, that is a dangerous feature. Is there something I can do to avoid this? And one that's quite common that most people don't think about is the road cut. The road cut will work on the same mechanism as the gully feature does. If an avalanche is to happen, because the road cut is a very flat surface, once debris starts to pile up there, it will pile up a lot deeper than if it has a low angle, broad, fanning slope for it to pile out on. Yeah, many popular hikes, especially hikes that you do in the summer, will travel through these features. Because in the summer, we don't care about avalanches for the most part, unless you're very high in the alpine. On a summer trail, it's not something we have to think of. However, that same summer trail in winter could absolutely have the threat of an avalanche. Yeah, then our classic avalanche safety gear and precautions. So there's 3 critical pieces to avalanche safety gear, and in all of our avalanche skills training courses, we teach you in depth how to use them to make you confident in the field. What they are is your Avalanche Transceiver. This is a piece of technology that we wear on our bodies, and it sends out a signal. So in the event that someone in your party does get buried, that signal is being sent out and everyone else can switch over their devices. And now they will be able to receive that signal and find you in the event of a burial. The other 2 critical pieces are the shovel and the probe. The probe is meant to pinpoint the potential victim of the avalanche, and then the shovel is reasonably self-explanatory. It's to move the snow in the tragic event that this does happen to your party. Now let's zoom in on our education. Avalanche Canada puts together a world-leading course on avalanche skills training. And in Canada, I'm very proud to say that we have one of the highest education rates of any country on avalanche skills training courses. Avalanche Canada does a fantastic job, and Mountain Skills Academy is really proud to be a provider to train people on the most modern techniques in avalanche skills. We run courses in Whistler, Squamish, Duffy Lake. We do public courses, and looking at our schedule, I look at it and say, man, this office crew is doing great work because we have so many courses. There's over 4 or 5 courses going out every single week. Hundreds of people a week are getting put through avalanche skills training through us alone. Yeah, and if you and a group of friends or coworkers want to set up a private course, that's also something that can be done. And your avalanche education doesn't stop at avalanche skills training courses. It is a perfect step, the best thing possible, but we also offer refresher courses if you've done a course in the past and you just want a little bit of a refresher, reprimer on the skills you already have. That's something that's offered as well. Or specific skill-based courses like a companion rescue course, where the course focuses in directly on the rescue portion of avalanche skills training, which is locating a buried subject and freeing them from the snow burial. And yeah, that is the end of our presentation from Mountain Skills Academy. As you can see, we are plugging social media for BC AdventureSmart. I have the utmost respect for them. It is a wonderful source for beginners and experienced people alike to keep their minds fresh on having good backcountry travel. And again, I'd like to thank them on giving us this opportunity to present this to you. And now, if Natalie and Sandra are so kind, I believe we're going to open a question poll.
Yeah, thank you so much, Corey. So everybody hearing my voice here, my name is Natasha, and I'm the one running the show behind the scenes here. So yeah, we have some great questions actually that have come in. So the first one is from Elizabeth, and she's saying, "What is your favorite I should know how to say this. Inclinometer? Inclinometer. Thank you. I'm learning a new term.
Yeah, so for those of you that are unaware, the inclinometer is the device that you can use to measure a slope angle. I really like the one made by Backcountry Access because it is a completely analog version. The versions on your phone can be great, they can be accurate, but now you're relying on technology. If you have the analog version that Backcountry Access makes, the only way this can fail is if you snap it in half or lose it. It's not going to run out of battery. And measuring any slope angle, there's a very specific way to do it as well. And that is something that is taught within an AST course. a very small primer on this is if you put your ski pole down level with the incline of the slope, like so, and rest the inclinometer on top of it, it will give you a good flat surface to get a slope angle reading.
Awesome. And can you just clarify what analog means, just for people, just in case they don't know the difference between analog and
Yeah,
analog?
absolutely. Analog means there's no electronic parts. So it is just simply a mechanical device.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. We have another excellent question here from Beth. How do you identify a convex? Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Do I have a piece of paper available to me? I don't have a book. So a convex feature is a feature that has this shape to it. So do we see how the shape of my book, getting in my camera, is showing a convex feature because it has this upper roll on it. If I was standing at the top of it, looking down the slope, it would appear as if my slope is disappearing from under me. And to put the opposite of that is we have our concavity, which is this bowl feature here. I hope that brings a little bit more light and it makes sense to you now.
That is awesome. This is a great question from Angela. Is there any kinds of snow that are more prone to avalanche or increase the risk?
So the snow science part of avalanche forecasting is something I'm an absolute nerd with and I love. Snow tends to form in layers based on different weather events. And the question you asked opens up a whole can of worms that gets talked about in depth in all training courses. To give the smallest primer is snow doesn't like sudden changes to it. So something like a rapid loading event where it snowed a meter overnight, that would be a kind of snow that is more likely to slide. But there's a whole bunch of other situations that can cause snow to slide more easily, but I would have to go on for an hour to explain all of it. So the briefing is snow doesn't like rapid change, be it from wind, heat, or loading in the form of new snow or rain.
That's a great sort of Coles Notes version of that. I really like that. That's great. And this kind of goes along with the last question. Are avalanches, this is from Diana, are avalanches something to worry about only if the weather gets warm or after a heavy snowfall?
Yeah, so avalanche problems, certain ones can be persistent and they stick with us through the entire year. A wonderful way you can go deeper with this and understand what's happening currently today is on the Avalanche Canada website, they run a hazard forecast. So every day they upload it at about 4 p.m. Some days they amend it in the morning. This avalanche forecast is summarizing what we're seeing in the snow currently. So if it was really hot the day before and you go look at the avalanche forecast, the forecasters have a full-time job to look at what's happening in the snowpack and relate this to the public.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I just threw the link to that forecast up in the chat there for everybody. And yeah, they did issue one today at 4 o'clock, so that's pretty awesome. You can go and see what they've had to say. This is another good question from Beth, a separate Beth from the first one. Are there apps on our phones that can measure slope?
Yeah, so that goes in with the analog. There is apps on your phone that measure slope. I have my phone beside me. I'll show you a quick example of one. Can we see, are we too bright? It is quite bright, but we can see the degree. As I change my phone, we start getting slope angles.
Right, yeah.
Again, I would go with a analog device opposed to your phone, but this is better than nothing.
Awesome.
That one there is just called Inclinometer.
Okay, sweet. This is a good question from Laura. What is the online mapping system that measures inclines? I think you were chatting maybe about this in your...
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, but one of our presenters is doing a online navigation tools, route finding.
Correct.
So yes, I don't know her presentation. Maybe she will touch on it, but I'll give a very quick analysis. The app called FatMap, it's a free to download, and then you have access to it. If you get the paid version, you can download the maps and then you don't need service to use them. It's great for the backcountry. But they have an overlay. You click in a context menu and say, I would like to look at avalanche terrain. Then it comes up with different shadings on how steep that terrain is. In my experience in the field, it is reasonably accurate, but it is not a perfect tool. It's not 100% accurate at all times.
Excellent. This is a good question from Tyler. Do digital devices interfere with the signal from our transceivers?
Yes, they do. When we are in transmit mode, Avalanche Canada is requesting people to keep any electronic device, not just your phone. This goes into heated socks, heated gloves, a headlamp, essentially anything with electricity running through it, to be at least 30 centimeters away from our transceivers. And that's when we're in transmit mode, when we're sending a signal. When we are in search mode looking for a buried person, then that number jumps up to 50 centimeters.
Awesome. That's great. So yeah, you really want it far away from you and, you know, tucked in the bottom of your bag and as far as possible away from you.
And one more thing to note, those measurements are plumb line measurements. So if I have my transceiver here up at the front, but my phone is here at my back, that measurement goes through my body, not around my body.
Yeah, correct. So if you're going to have any of those items, bottom of the bag, in a nice, wrapped in a tube, tucked in an extra pair of gloves is a great place to have it. So it's nice and far away from that transceiver. This is a great question from Doug. We'll take one or two more, and then I think we're almost.
All the questions are incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So many great questions here. So this is a great one from Doug. If you must cross an avalanche hazard, are there any tips for snowshoers to help minimize the risk?
Yeah, so if you're in a situation where you have no ability to avoid it whatsoever, first, before you get in that, is there's something called the 5 Ps. Proper planning prevents poor performance. You would hopefully want to avoid this situation to start with. But if I am in that situation, I must cross the slope. Here's my steps. First, I take what I know from the avalanche bulletin and my hazard and see if this is the right call and assess the slope for stability. But I would also only like to endanger one person in my party at a time to this. So if I have a group of 5, I don't want all 5 people exposed to the hazard at the same time. I would send people across one at a time until people are in a safe zone, then the next person can go.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that explanation. You know, can you go over the 5 Ps one more time? I'm gonna type them into the chat for people just so they have them, because that's a really good resource.
Yeah, so proper planning prevents poor performance. Essentially what this is saying is that if before I go out on a backcountry adventure, if I go through my proper planning steps and I have a good route plan, I understand the terrain I'm going through, I've used mapping software to identify avalanche terrain before I'm even in the field, that is a step I can take to prevent poor performance when I'm in the field.
Love it. That's great. That goes, you know, that's something that goes along with our 3 Ts: trip, plan, train, take the essentials, right? You want to make sure that you've done all of those things. Yeah, so, okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Corey. That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and all of those answers to those questions. That was very, very informative. Thank you again.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, Corey. I really appreciate that. It's nice to hear from Mountain Skills. And again, I enjoyed working with Ollie before. Say hi for me if you don't mind. That would be great. Corey made some really good points, and a few of them triggered a few things I'd like to talk about before we move on to our next poll question and our next guest. Lots of great information there, a few good things to remember. we always promote our 3 T's. Like Natasha just said, we ask you to trip plan, train, and take those essentials. And if you haven't already downloaded our trip plan app, we're going to ask you to do that tonight. We can make that available to you. If you didn't scan it from the QR code in Corey's presentation there, Natasha can toss that into the chat as well. And it gives you a chance to download that. It's free of charge to anyone in Canada. And it helps you make your plan as well as file that plan with a trusted emergency contact. This is an app that was created and launched just a few years ago. Most of the downloads in the country are in British Columbia. We're an active, healthy province. We can't dismiss that. We're active in SAR as well. So the more information you can leave with a trusted contact for search and rescue to access, and they would access that through your local police or RCMP. So if you're in trouble and you need help, you need to phone 911 as soon as possible. Stop moving, don't move around. And make sure you stay right where you are, and that allows them to find you faster. Yes. If everyone could just be on mute, that would be helpful. Thanks. And so the app really makes it easy. Makes it easy for you, makes it easy for your contact, makes it easy for search and rescue and police. I'm going to talk about causations for a second, and then I'll jump into this question. Like I said earlier, we know what the reasons are for search and rescue because we access all of that data. Thanks to the SAR doing their admin, our team here at BC AdventureSmart pull it all out, and we know the top 3 reasons for search and rescue in British Columbia are injury, getting lost and disoriented, and exceeding their abilities. Those are the top 3 causations of search and rescue. We also know that some of the top user groups that ask for search and rescue in the winter time are snowmobilers, backcountry tourers, and snowshoers. In the summertime, it's easily hikers, but those are the 3 user groups mainly in the winters, hence us running these workshops. So if you think about those causations, getting injured, how can you mitigate that or apply first aid if you need to? Some training would help there. Lost and disoriented, how can you reduce that? Do you know how to navigate? Can you use the tools like we talked about, we'll talk about again? And then we check in with ourselves with our abilities. Do we make those decisions to push it, go farther, faster, go into terrain and weather we're not sure of? Do we exceed our abilities to go for a snowshoe during the winter, depending on the conditions and your abilities and training? Lots to think about there. We could go on forever, but tonight we'll continue with our group. Before we move on, we have another question. Natasha, if you don't mind pulling up, we want to know what type of a backcountry enthusiast you are. We know tonight's about snowshoeing, but do you like to ski? Are you a snowshoer? Maybe hike and throw on some micro spikes, which is my favorite thing to do in the winter time. Actually, more than snowshoeing. Well, if there's lots of snow, of course, snowshoeing is great. Or any split boarders in the crowd tonight. Even though we've kind of identified our winter series here with user group specifics each night, anyone can join any of these. We can all benefit from our speakers, no matter what the mode of transportation is on the snow. We're either sliding or walking or slipping or falling, so we can gain from all of it. So do you ski, snowshoe, hike, microspike, or splitboard? Once Natasha gets all that pulled up, we'll have a peek at it, and then we'll jump into our second presenter, which is going to be full of information as well. We have a few skiers in the crowd, snowshoers and hikers and microspikers, which we thought the gist of you would be, which we have over 235 of you here tonight. So thank you, snowshoers and spikers, and some skiers and some split boarders. Awesome. Thanks, Natasha. Corey talked a little bit about FatMap, and our next presenter is going to talk about it a little bit more. And they reached out to us today, which was so awesome. We were able to have a lot of emails back and forth, and they're really here to support you tonight and us with what we're doing. FatMap, like Corey said, is free to use, but for those who want to tap into those maps offline, dig deeper into the terrain tools and benefit from partner deals, there's actually called FatMap Explore. FatMap are graciously offering our attendees, all of you tonight, a 1-month free Explore voucher as a gift from them to you for what we're doing with you and you joining us here to get educated tonight, to all of the attendees from tonight's session. And more information can be found on that through our next guest's profile, but also Natasha can share with you. And then you'll all receive a follow-up email with a recording of tonight's session in case you want to watch it again or share it with a friend. And the link to all of that is in there as well. The Association of Canadian Mountain Guides is well known. If you haven't heard about them before, you're about to hear about them a little bit more from our guest, Natalie Droder. She is a certified ACMG guide, hiking guide, and belongs to a female-owned company offering outdoor adventure packages in Canada and worldwide, mentoring young women to become trip leaders. It sounds exciting to me. It's great, great thing, Natalie. Natalie pursues her outdoorsy multi-sport lifestyle in the summer by mountain biking and road biking, hiking and backpacking, rock climbing, or mountaineering. That's a busy summer, Natalie. And in the winter, you can find her cross-country skiing or skate skiing, ski touring, or ice climbing. All of this with her very active husband, friends, or Alpine Club of Canada members. Natalie is a dual Swiss-Canadian citizen, a guide with ACMG, and a hiking guide with over 10 years experience as a volunteer leading backcountry trips for the Alpine Club of Canada Calgary section. I'm excited to welcome Natalie. I can't wait to hear what you have to say, and you're welcome to join us now, and the stage is all yours once you're here with me. There we go. Wonderful. Natalie's been great at sharing a bunch of our stories and helping promote tonight's session, her session really. So enjoy your time with Natalie, and I'll be back shortly. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, AdventureSmart, BC AdventureSmart for contacting me. And I want to start the session tonight by acknowledging that I have the privilege to live, play, and guide in Treaty 7, land of the Tsuut'ina, Blackfoot, Métis, and Ktunaxas nations. With that, I will have my presentation in full mode, as I hope everybody can see it. And tonight I will be talking about winter digital navigation, mainly digital navigation that we could apply in the winter. So I'm not going to do a poll here, but the presentation goals are to empower technology shy people to just be more than just curious or shy, but to become eager to have technology on their side. I would like to also promote sporadic digital navigation users to use an app, maybe just to look up where they are, when they don't know, to maybe plan a bit more their trips ahead of time, so they can start going to places that they might not even know. Maybe we can also develop in regular digital navigation users a critical eye for tracks that are shared on apps and online platforms, as to avoid something that's maybe above their head. And maybe we can help each digital navigation user to develop spatial awareness and on the screen and in the field to avoid terrain traps, as we heard, especially during avalanche season. So we have all sorts of users, and you can see my little gifs here. Some of them are inexperienced and they still want to share and have followers online. And as you can see, they're like that little child who can barely walk, but they're all about the followers online. So anyway, the goal is really to give you an idea about the tools out there, and that it'll entice you to maybe discover more and want to become a confident user, able to even share your route planning with your family, with your friends you're going with groups you lead, etc. So yeah, some of us are unfortunately also too busy to plan, last-minute planners, or we're caffeine-driven, no time, we just get everything ready once we're in the car. I would encourage you to look up all these navigation tools like apps, GPS devices, web pages to prepare ahead of time. There's a whole bunch of them out there, and maybe you use some already. Maybe some of them are familiar to you. I'd recommend, because we have so much choice nowadays, to choose for sure one, maybe two, and become proficient at it. There's no point having 5 of them and using only a couple of them very just on the surface. It's best you know your tool, you know your device, you know your app very well, and you go from there. To know also is apps function a certain way on the phone, and some of them offer memberships that when you work with them online, you have way more capability, because of a computer or laptop can offer you way more to prepare your trip, and they sync. So anyway, I just wanted to show you that little YouTube video. Hopefully it launches. Natasha, you can tell me.
Natalie, it's actually just a little bit kind of jumpy and glitchy in this
Okay.
format. It just kind of took a little bit for me to realize that it was kind of jumpy. I do have this video loaded into the back end if you would like me to play the last half of it for people, just so that, yeah, I definitely do that.
That's fine. Was it showing a little bit? It's just, do you have an idea of what I want to talk with? Yes, we want to have a map and compass, and this is to show you the 3D, all the ability that we have nowadays to pre-plan and see the 3D aspect of the trip.
Yeah, I think that was a good gist of it. And then what I'll do also is I'll put this link in the chat so that people can watch it afterwards as well.
Excellent, excellent. Let me go back to my presentation here. Here we are. I will continue by talking about apps. So it was just to talk to you about getting into the world, the 3D world. And some apps have a lot of ability to help you plan a trip. And some have the 3D world included. But I'll be talking to you about choosing one for you that you're going to start using, and you're going to be starting to be proficient at it. I'm going to talk to you about the Gaia apps, Gaia GPS app, and a little bit about PatMap. But the pros and cons of apps really is, the pros is everybody has a phone nowadays. I mean, very rare are the people that don't have a phone. Apps are often free, or the amount you have to pay to have an app is not that much. And the apps are often very user-friendly. The thing is, with apps, they don't always have maps already downloaded. So don't think that you can just start an app in your car as you're heading to your trailhead and you'll have your maps with you. Even if you're using Wi-Fi on the road, etc. You need to download the maps on each app. And you can download them per area where you're going. And so phones, you depend on your phone to know where you are, and ultimately to not have anything happening to you in the backcountry, are fragile. The phones are fragile, and what if it breaks? You drop it, it falls on the, and it breaks. And they're easily affected by temperatures. Summer, they'll be having a battery that lasts longer than in the winter. And in the wind, if you have it in the pocket, facing the wind, they might die sooner than if they're in your backpack against your back. And so the battery is a big thing. You need to really think about having some battery power with you, especially if you go for a multi-day trip as well. And yeah, the thing is, you start depending on this phone. Now we have GPS devices on the other side that are also, there's a lot of different kinds on the market, different prices. So they're sturdier than cell phones. They won't be as affected by local temperatures, but they're not as easily, but they might still be affected by temperatures, depending if you have them on the outer of your pack, facing a wind, you know, minus 20-day snowshoeing somewhere. They are battery powered, but they are only used to do find yourself in the terrain. They're not used to, if you don't, your cell phone, if you don't have it in airplane mode, you do a multitude of things with your cell phone, and that's the problem. Is we do so many things with our phones that we end up depleting them, and when we really need them to get out of the pickle, then we end up having issues. We could have issues. And so the GPS devices have the maps already downloaded. Now the thing is that not everybody has a GPS. They're costly. They're not always as user-friendly. The screen is a little bit smaller. So, but and you are, the main thing is your life depends on the GPS signal, and you have to note that if you're in a bushy area down a gully with lots of trees, you will not, your device will not connect with GPS. With the satellite, sorry. So you're saying I can't trust this technology. No, the key is to just have a backup plan. So you can trust technology, but have always a backup plan. So, you know, a paper, waterproof map, compass, and know how to use it. There are courses. I can offer you a course if you want. Have a power bank, have extra batteries, have a case to protect your device, as well as your phone, whichever is your technology chosen, and test it all before you go, and make sure that you don't carry dead weight. And ask your friends your friends in the group to take a backup as well. So now we'll be diving into the Gaia GPS. So Gaia GPS is pretty amazing, I find. Started using it quite a bit. And it has a very simple menu. This is the menu on the computer. It'll show a little differently on your phone as an app, but they do sync once you have a membership. And very simply put, you need a base map. So you need to choose a base map. They have a few of them, like Gaia Topo and so on. I have that mentioned in my little bubble at the bottom here. And so you start with that, and then you add layers. And before adding layers, you can add overlays, which are they are going to be your waypoint, your route, your tracks, anything you add to your base map. With the layers, you can choose to add winter layers, summer layers. Here we have some winter layers. I added Canada Topo, and it has way more details and interval lines and names, etc. Gaia winter meters in meters is now showing the resorts with the runs and the ski lifts. So it gives you an idea. We also see the snow depth depending on the forecast and the slope angle. We were talking about avalanche terrain. Our friend Corey was talking about avalanche terrain. So slope angle is a crucial one for traveling in the backcountry safe, to know what's happening around you and above you at all times, and even ahead of time. So here we have the layers. Here I have some layers that are showing more the summer layers. I can show Wildfires Canada, historical, very useful in the summer to know if you're going to be bushwhacking or not, because it's open trees. The fire went through last summer, and it'll be easier to walk through. It won't be as pretty unless the vegetation is already has already grown and it's blooming flowers and so on and so forth. And on the right side, you'll see how I added the satellite with labels layer, and you can add up to quite a few layers actually. I just wouldn't recommend to add too many, because it will add to the confusion. Like it'll be to read a map and have more details. Here they're pretty zoomed out, but when you zoom in, you don't want too much. And on the computer, you can see how when you click on Wildfire Canada Historical on the left, my layer, I see a description and I see the dates of when they happen. So every one of these layers has an explanation as per what they are and what they do. So it's a pretty good feature. And so then we have the saved items. That'll be your library, where you have everything that you saved that you've worked on your computer or on your phone. So and then you can filter things by what's new, what is the newest, or what is, if you have areas versus routes versus tracks versus waypoints, etc. Here I have all items together. I have an area besides a waypoint, besides a etc. And here I have tracks only. In the preferences, you can choose if you want metric or imperial. Just a detail like this that might make a difference. This is how it shows on your phone. So this is my base map of Lake Louise in Banff National Park, and that's the winter layer, the new winter layer showing the resort. And then we see a track to Skokie Lodge that I've taken, and then we can see the slope angle on the right, which you can, each of these layers you can define if you want them stronger color or not. Here we have another map, maybe not as zoomed in, Mount Sur, Sanford with the satellites. We have the satellite label with labels layer. Then I added the slope angle layer, and then I added even the snow depth layer. So it gives you, and in the summer it would not show because there's no forecast for snow or no snow that has fallen and is not recorded. So yeah, in Gaia GPS you can do tracks and routes. So routes are the predefined and created, it is the predefined created work that you do at home on your website or tablet, etc. Like on the website, on your tablet or computer. And the tracks are what's taken on the trail. When you turn your GPS on tracking, and it just connects with the satellite and will take waypoints, and when you come back home you can download that or connect it to your computer. I guess it'll sync by itself now, and you will see where you've gone, and you can do read stats and so on and so forth. The routes can be edited and the tracks can be trimmed. Routes, this is what shows on my cell phone versus the computer. You see the screen is smaller. You have routes. You can choose, this is the screen for route, gives you a distance, ascent, descent. You can show on the main map, and on the very right you see the map, you see the track going up to Abbott Ridge. So this is how it looks like. Tracks are what I was just saying before, is when you are in the field, you turn your cell phone on tracking or recording, and you come back home and you have a loop or however your track is with the distance covered, the time, ascent, descent, and so on and so forth. And the tracks, even speed profile, elevation profile, and so on, you can show it on the main map, and this is how it shows when you do a loop. You can also export this information and share it with friends. You can also print it. I think it's super useful. I don't print a lot, but let's say for a trip, multi-day trip, when I don't have access to internet, I might want to have a backup file of everything every day planned. So I can export as a GPS KML file and send it to my friends who are on the trip with me, or to a backup person on the trip. And I can also print it. A different screen opens up. When I click on Open Details Page, I click on the printer, and then you determine, you have to zoom in a lot more because it's a different screen, but you can play with that. Anyway, it's all features that, and here we have our map. That's a summer map with the fires in the Banff area, I believe. Yeah, and you can zoom in and out before you print. And then that'll be that. So here, yeah, to recap, lots of apps out there: Canada Topo, Gaia GPS, Avenza, MapMe, FatMap, etc. And GPS devices, you know, the whole line of Garmin services, website, pages. Google Earth is great. You can do a bunch of work on Google Earth too. You can do measurements of some slopes and so on. And we have FatMap now that has come out, and here maybe I wanted to show you a couple minutes of this video if you wanted to see how FatMap works.
Natalie, I have the video loaded in the back end just so it plays a little bit clearer for people. So I'll
that'd
play.
be great. Can you do that?
Yeah, I'll play Nikolai's video, just a little bit of it.
Yeah, just the first 2 minutes max.
Sounds great.
Thank you. I'm not seeing it, but is everybody seeing it?
Awesome.
It was just to give us an idea of the 3D aspect, right? I think it's super important versus a flat map.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that presentation, Natalie. We have some excellent questions waiting in the wings here. The first one coming in is from Doug, and Doug is saying, regarding the digital mapping tools, do you know which ones offer a slope or gradient overlay, if that's a thing?
The slope angle, definitely GPS, Gaia GPS, and FatMap.
Awesome.
Yeah, but as we heard also from Corey, they're not as precise as he was mentioning, right? It's still a tool, a device, and I think I would do some testing in the field as well, but it gives you a good idea for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, just like Corey said, stick with that analog. The analog is best, no digital parts in it. Analog, analog, analog. This is an awesome question from Chris. Does tracking drain the battery more than just viewing the map on the phone?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And you can choose how much you want to have it tracked. You can choose, once every 2 minutes to once every 5, etc. So every app will have something different. It should offer you that in the settings you can choose.
Excellent. This is a good question from Angela. What would be a good app to start with? With so many apps, with so many features, it's easy to get overwhelmed.
Oh, I know what you mean. I know some people like Maps.me, but I got sent some waypoints, didn't work with my phone. It depends also what you want to do. I chose Gaia because I know the guiding community use it. It is not that complicated. You can, before you buy a pro version, you can test it as a user, simply like that. The pro version offers you more because I like traveling internationally, and it offers me layers that are maps of different countries. I think it's aspects of where you're going to travel, when you're going to travel, how much you need that map that will help you define which one you want to choose. I hope that helps answer the question.
Awesome. And this is just a more broad spectrum question from Javier, and they're asking, is it safe to assume that designated winter trails within national or provincial parks that are open would be safe from avalanche runout and other AVI risks?
I would say yes and no. I would definitely take an avalanche training course because there are still trails on places that go through avalanche terrain. as hiking guide and snowshoeing guide, I'm not allowed to take my guests into avalanche terrain, and I only have permission to go in Avalanche Terrain 1, which has basically no IV terrain. There are lots of trails that are open and will have run-out zones, which if you know the IV forecast is not good that day, you will not choose that trail. So your best bet is to take an avalanche training course.
Excellent. So Travis is asking, have you had much experience with all trails? They're going back and forth between Gaia and all trails.
So all trails I hear is very popular. I personally am not happy with them because the reviews, the comments there are from the public, and the public is not always experienced. And in the public, we have people of different age and ability and fitness level, and comments from one person might not be suitable for another person. So that's where I would recommend an app that is used or has comments from professionals. I think that makes a big difference. We've had an incident in the Rockies on the east side where a scramble was described as a hike, and it's not a hike, it's a scramble, and there was an incident there. So that's my pet peeve with all trails. It has good aspects of it, but it's not from professionals.
Excellent. And just one more question before we end your presentation and all this awesome information. Can you explain the age range you mentor young girls to be outdoor leaders, and what type of mentorship do you offer?
What age? Oh, any age. I've done mainly adults with the Alpine Club. So, but we've had university students, and I have guided young people, youth at risk. So, you know, it can be whatever age your children can start going outside. For them to become a leader, I would start probably by the time they're teenagers.
Awesome. And I just have one question from Mary asking how can they contact you about the mentorship. I will respond to Mary privately and make a connection via email for you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Natalie, for this awesome presentation with all this great information and all these answers to these questions. Super valuable. Again, thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
It's been our pleasure. I know as Natasha and I pull these together, we did them in the summer, and we've been excited to pull this all together for this winter. It's fun finding all of these special guests and seeing who we can have join us. There's some great opportunities for you to share your expertise like you did tonight, Natalie. Thank you. We really appreciate, we're grateful for your time and for everything you do in your community, and for the young girls and anyone else who joins you for any of your tours. They're in good hands. That's for sure. I just wanted to plug our door prize just a wee bit. So we have a great door prize coming up. We're going to ask you a skill testing question that the answer will come from tonight's session. I'm going to ask you that question after we talk to our next guest. And the prize is actually from Hill Sound. So there's a little trickle of teasing information there, and it's worth about $85. So we'll get to that right after our next guest. The next poll question for you, Natasha, if you don't mind pulling up, what level of avalanche training do you have? So we know what type of users we have here tonight, mainly snowshoers and hikers with microspikes. But we're curious what type of level of avalanche training you have. Is it absolutely nothing? Maybe tonight, like I said earlier, maybe this is the start to your outdoor education, which is a great start. It's a good springboard. Do you have your AST1? Do you have your AST2? An additional training on top of AST1 and 2. There's so much out there to gather. Ours is just awareness program. We're here to start you off and send you in the right direction, give you the basics, talk to you about our 3 T's, our app, what to do in an emergency, who to phone, and then depending on the season, like now, we'll send you over to Avalanche Canada to check out some of their awesome resources. If you're new to the backcountry, head over there after you've started with us. And they provide the curriculum for the providers to deliver the AST courses. So I'm curious tonight for all of you out there, what your level of avalanche training is. It gives us a good idea. So we're at 78% that you don't have any avalanche training at all. We've got 19% at AST1, some at 2s, and some above, in addition to 1 and 2. So for the mass amount of you tonight, this is a great start. I thank you for that. This is awesome. This is what we're here for, is exactly this. And I really do encourage you, and maybe Natasha, as I introduce the next guest, you could throw into the chat there some awesome links over to Avalanche Canada. They are the subject matter experts for avalanche awareness with getting into the backcountry, in and amongst all the excellent information from our guests tonight. They have some online educational tools and tutorials and videos, great spots. So Natasha's going to throw a few things in there as I introduce our next guest, and you've got a lot to pull from our chat, I think, tonight. Blackcomb Helicopter, if you live anywhere in the South Coast, you've heard them, you've seen them, maybe you've literally heard them, you heard of them, and Rob Munday is here tonight to help us. We've worked with Rob literally at trailheads. He's come out and supported us and do public education at busy trailheads in the Sea to Sky corridor. He's a wealth of information. He's employed by Blackcomb Heli, primarily as a helicopter hoist specialist, working with local search and rescue groups in many facets of that role. Originally from Australia and now Canadian dual citizen, Rob studied in Melbourne and has a diploma in outdoor education, as well as a bachelor's degree in aviation maintenance technology. Amassing almost a decade of experience in helicopter, focused on wildfire initial attack and experience, Rob has concurrently employed in a position that has built significant experience in helicopter search and rescue aircrew operations while in Australia under both day and night, as well as instrument flight rules, IFR conditions. Rob enjoys mountain biking, snowboarding, and rock climbing in his limited spare time. So we're grateful for some of his limited spare time tonight. And we welcome Rob to join us at the table here tonight and share what he's got. He's got some great bird's eye view and some expert advice for sure. Hey, Rob.
Hello. How's everyone doing tonight? Hopefully well. I just need to get my screen set up here so that you can all see the right screen. That one looks a little better. Yeah, so thank you, Sandra and Natasha, for the introduction there. That was very kind. And the whole AdventureSmart team, you're right, I have worked with you guys a little bit in the past, and you guys do a fantastic job out there in the field, and it's sometimes thankless work. So yeah, everyone, whether they know it or not, should appreciate it, I think. And thanks to everyone as well for logging in today to watch our speakers share some of their information. I know I'm last, so I'll try and keep everyone awake for just a little bit longer here. I haven't gone maybe as deep into the technical stuff as some of the other presenters here tonight, so I'll try and keep everyone awake and give you guys lots of pictures to look at and explain a little bit about sort of who I am and what I do for Blackcomb and around BC here. So we'll see if we can click our way through some slides. So yeah, as Sandra said, my name is Rob. I work for Blackcomb Helicopters. Live here in Squamish, and as our other guests have mentioned, I'm grateful to operate on the beautiful territory of the Squamish people here in the local area and everywhere else that we get to fly around this province. It's pretty amazing to get to see it from our perspective, for sure. So as we kind of mentioned, my official role, job title is as a helicopter hoist operator, but it's a bit of a jack of all trades position within the organization. I do a whole range of different things, and we'll get into that a little bit here shortly. As Sandra mentioned, I have experience previously doing all different things with helicopters, and they get to do some pretty cool stuff. Some of the pictures there, I've tried to demonstrate a little bit about what I have done. We do work on power lines. We go out and put people onto ships to drive them safely around the coast of BC here. Fight wildfires, sometimes from the air, sometimes waist deep in swamps, like one of the pictures there is showing. And then right now as well, search and rescue is one of the main things that we're doing here with Blackcomb in Squamish and all around our local area. I am currently going through the MIT, the member in training process with Squamish Search and Rescue as well. So we've got a month or two left of that, I believe. And I have actually spent some time out in the field with the volunteer team this summer here in Squamish. So it's pretty amazing what those guys are doing. I'm very, very thankful to be allowed to be a part of it. Yeah, in both roles. So when I'm doing that, I'm a volunteer, obviously, and then when we're doing our flying work, then I'm an employee of Blackcomb. So a little bit about Blackcomb. I'm sure most people have, as Sandra mentioned there, have heard us thumping around all over the province at times. It might be fighting fire or doing search and rescue, or hopefully you guys have got to come and fly with us on a tour or a heli ski flight or all kinds of other fun stuff that we're doing now and have been doing for a long time here. We have bases, believe it or not, all the way from YVR 7 or 8 bases all the way up to as far north as Terrace, with dotted bases all the way up the Sea to Sky and beyond. In the meantime, Pemberton and Lillooet and places like that. We have 22 aircraft, I think, right now in the fleet, but that changes pretty regularly. And most of those aircraft could be utilized potentially for search and rescue and have been utilized for search and rescue in the past. So it's quite a big fleet, and I think that's what makes us quite versatile here in the Sea to Sky corridor, is just our spread of aircraft and how many we've got and how capable they are. Yeah, we do provide search and rescue primarily to the sort of local teams here in the Sea to Sky, Squamish, Whistler, Pemberton, up to Lillooet a little bit, the Sunshine Coast, Lions Bay, and we can be made available to anywhere in the province that we need to go. But most of our aircraft are stationed here locally, and we support our local teams fairly heavily in the summertime, particularly. Lots of tourism stuff as well, and our company and our parent company, in fact, down in the city, have a bunch of different support initiatives and charitable organizations and support the community very strongly. And that's one of the main reasons why I love working for these guys so much, is the way that they support, you know, me, the employees, and also the communities that we operate in. It's a pleasure to be a part of such a great organization. In terms of what I do for Blackcomb, again, I said it before, it's a little bit of a jack of all trades situation. It depends on the day what I end up doing. But in my role as a hoist operator doing this type of work, primarily, I'm in the back of the aircraft like we see in the picture there, and I'm actually physically running the rescue hoist that's bolted to the side of the aircraft, and we use that to lower people and equipment down into places where we can't land, basically. It's a lot more than that. The pilot, when they're flying the aircraft, isn't actually able to look down and see what's happening beneath the aircraft and on the ground underneath us, like they would be when we're doing our long line work. So I'm actually acting as the eyes for the pilot and talking, using words to describe what we need to do and where we need to go and where these people are that are hanging underneath the aircraft. So that involves quite a bit of previous experience, obviously. Like I mentioned earlier, I have sort of accumulated a bunch of information from a bunch of different places in my career so far, and that all kind of comes together when we go out and do these operations. I have to understand fairly significantly how the aircraft works, how the pilot would like to fly that aircraft, what our search and rescue guys need on the ground in order to execute the rescues, and I'm kind of the middleman that tries to tie it all together and find a way to make it all happen in the back of the aircraft when we go out and do our missions. We have to work with the search and rescue guys to make sure they're safe in the back and they're connected and they're not going to fall out, and we're taking all the right gear with us and getting them the things that they need on the ground after we've got them into the accident scene or we're out doing a search. And then you kind of acting as a pseudo co-pilot, I guess, for a lot of other operations with the aircraft as well. So it's a varied role, and it's pretty interesting at times to get to see what we get to see. It's yeah, very interesting. So just a short little video here. I've tried to pull something out that sort of demonstrates what I've just described in a very short period of time. This video, hopefully you guys will be able to hear it. It does have some audio with it as well, and hopefully it plays smoothly. And what you'll be hearing here is the communications that happen between myself, the accent hopefully will give it away, and the pilot sitting in the front of the aircraft. You may hear some radio traffic as well, and that'll be from the person on the end of the line here. So this was a rescue we did this summer off the Chief for a climber that had injured his lower leg, and we went in and later in the day and basically were able to put one of our rescuers into some fairly technical terrain that you'll see here. And then this video is just a short clip of the process to get that rescuer and the subject off basically the side of the Chief and get them out and head back to EMS. So we'll see how we go here. We'll see if it plays.
One, hold, they got the hook in hand, working with the hook. Yeah, but take it up, signal, road is a clear, position skip, let's just come back. One, nice and easy, weight's coming on in 2, 1. Clear of the deck, how's your power? Power's good, bring him in. Roger, continue there. Let's clear straight back for 10. Okay, coming back slowly. Sails clear, we're continuing in. Back 5. No. And hold there. Slowly. Well clear of the rock now. If you'd like to slide out to the right, you're welcome to. Come just a little bit. Riding really nice. But now I just want to make sure we're set up for a departure here, should we need it. We're continuing in. We've got 35 meters of cable out currently. Okay. If you'd like to easy depart, you're welcome to. Okay, I'm gonna pedal turn right here, Robin. You're welcome to do that, no problem. Coming right. And they're continuing in. I've got 20 meters of cable out and they're riding nicely. That speed is good.
So there we go. That's the most shortest, sweetest clip I could find that sort of demonstrates a little bit about my perspective when we're at work there. So at that point, if we had to continue the video, we bring the rescuer and the subject up and bring them inside the aircraft and go and find a safe and suitable place to go land to hand them off, usually to our wonderful BC ambulance staff. And then, like I said, a lot of other bits and pieces that go on behind the scenes outside of that as well. So part of the discussion tonight is all about winter safety and backcountry safety. My perspective is a little bit different to most. I guess I'm not in any worlds an avalanche professional or anything like that. We do have some great training that we get here, but you've heard from the experts tonight on that sort of stuff. But I have been asked by Sandra and the gang to just kind of give a bit of my perspective on how what you guys do out in the field in the wintertime when you're out recreating can sort of make our lives more challenging or easier from our perspective as well. So I think it's just important to note the winter weather. The days are short right now. It's probably about as short as it gets right now. In fact, we're pretty close to solstice time, but we don't have a lot of daylight. And when we do have daylight, the visibility, the weather, things are often quite poor at this time of year. We've seen atmospheric rivers one after another coming in here, which have made our lives challenging the last few weeks. But things like fog, cloud, rain, they can all be dangerous, especially when we get out into the mountains, and quite often to the point where we're actually not able to get the aircraft to where we need to get it to do things like rescues and searches. Strong winds as well are also a challenge. Helicopters actually fly quite well in windy conditions, but at some point we have to actually land, and often the places where people get lost or injured aren't easily accessible. They're quite complex terrain, and in those windy conditions in the mountains, it can be quite challenging and even impossible to actually get the aircraft in and land it in certain situations. So, and likewise, when we're doing our hoisting or our long landing rescues as well, we can get the aircraft sometimes to the location, but often it's too windy and too turbulent to actually maintain a safe, stable hover to get our rescuers in and anyone who's lost or injured out again safely. That's our big thing. We just want to do it safely. So most of the time, there are few aircraft in BC that can fly at night, but all of the things I've just mentioned, weather and wind and all that sort of stuff, just gets amplified at night because we don't have the same level of control over the aircraft, and it's more challenging inherently to fly at night. So anything we do in the daytime almost certainly will be more challenging at night. And we also have to increase our safety margins just a little bit more to fly at night. We're not doing that here at Blackcomb currently. But there are other organizations, like the 442 Squadron out on the island and some other organizations that are doing a little bit of night work, but it's not a given that an aircraft will be able to fly at night, and definitely not a given that they'll actually be able to perform a successful rescue just because of the extra limitations that are required at night. So quite often people are still spending the night outside until the morning when we get better conditions to actually try and fly and perform a rescue. So if anything above is mentioned, like I've just said, then sometimes a rescue may be delayed or impossible by helicopter. So it's just important to note, especially when it's dark at this time of year, that it always becomes more challenging. Some pictures of the weather. There was the rescue we did last year. It's exactly the same mountain up in the Tantalus Range, looking at it, one on the left from the night before and two the next morning. So weather always comes in late in the day, usually anyway, and the people that we were rescuing are actually right on the cloud line in the picture on the left there, and we were able to go back out and grab them in the morning in bluebird conditions. But they spent a pretty rough night out there until we were actually able to go get them. So the weather can always be a challenge for us. So a couple of things that I've come up with for things when you're out in the backcountry that help us is firstly how to be seen, how to make it easy for us to actually find you out there. This is almost exclusively on you guys out there in the field, but to have the necessary equipment for the trip. So making sure you've got enough, not just for your 1 or 2 hour snowshoe hike, but enough to potentially survive and be comfortable overnight or until rescuers are actually able to get to you. So it means a little bit more gear being carried with you, but it may make the difference between a very, very unpleasant night or worse and quite a comfortable night out in the field if you ever have to do that. It's one thing again to have the navigation and the communication tools which we've talked about in the previous presentations as well. Things like inReach's cell phones are great, but you need to know how to use them. And we often will see people out in the field that have the ability or have the tools to provide us with the information that we would need to do a rescue, but don't necessarily have the knowledge to use those skills to get us the information we need out of the devices, which can be, it just slows things down. We can certainly still accomplish our goals, but it certainly makes things a little bit slower. So if you're going to carry an inReach, know how to use it. If you're going to carry a cell phone and the apps, know how to use them quickly and effectively if you need to use them. So when we're out, how to be seen, this is a big one for us. We work with our volunteer search and rescue guys, and they're phenomenal. They do a great job out there. And even when they're doing all the right things in the field, as we'll see in this next video, it still can be a real challenge to find these guys knowing exactly where they are with they're doing all the right things. So if we ever need to come and find you or are looking for you, or if you ever need help, then some of the things that you can do, things like bright clothing, making movement. If it's getting close to the end of the day or you're down in the trees or it's at night, lights can make a big difference as well. If you are ending up out in the dark at night and you do hear an aircraft, then they actually will often have heat detecting equipment on board. So heat, things like space blankets and stuff like that can actually block heat signals coming from you. So keep the heat blanket on until you hear an aircraft, but it may actually help to remove that if they're looking for you with an infrared camera. But definitely lights help at dusk time and down in the trees for sure. Moving out into a more open area, it's incredibly difficult to see people in thick canopy and thick forest. Getting out into any kind of open terrain, as long as it's safe to do so, will certainly help us to see you. And smoke signals from lighting a small fire or anything like that. The flares can also help to see us as well because it gets up above the trees and it provides some contrast. So that also helps quite a bit. So the next video here, this is one of our search and rescue volunteers here in Squamish on a mission we did last year, and we were just trying to locate them initially. They'd already been able to gain access to the subject from the ground before we were able to get into the air, and we were looking for them to basically extract the injured mountain biker, I believe. So you'll see here, it's just a short little clip with a bit of audio, again showing our perspective from the air, and you'll see how great this volunteer search and rescue person here in Squamish did to make our lives a lot easier. Let's see if it works.
He says she's behind us here. Okay, looking. Probably 60 ready door. You are clear door. Roger, left door is coming open. It is back and
I'm at your 12 o'clock.
okay, that's good.
I see color.
Yep, got your red sweater down to the left there, low.
I got her there.
10 o'clock.
We have you.
So again, they're just a short little clip, and then some of you may not have actually picked up at first. Let me get my screen back up here. But it sort of was a progression. We got some audio from the ground. That could be a cell phone, that could be, radio as well for these guys on the ground to get a hold of us. And we were able to get some direction from the ground on where this person was. They moved out into a clear open area. And then I know for me, you heard another one of our volunteers in the back. He actually said, I've got color. So he was actually able to see the color first, and that was what the giveaway was. And then if you didn't see that at the point where there was some color, which is in the screenshot here on the rock there at the top end of the rock, if you haven't seen it yet, as soon as that person started waving that bright red jacket, that added movement to it as well. And that was that certainly did more than enough to allow us to see that person out in the open area there. So a great job by the guys on the ground, and that just expedites the whole process for us. Then we can get into figuring out how we're going to get into you there. We talked about bringing the right gear as well. So, you know, most people don't plan for the 1 hour or the 2 hour hike in the Bluebird afternoon in North Vancouver or in the Squamish area here, but having the equipment and the clothing and everything to be actually able to comfortably at least survive a night outside, especially when daylight is so limited right now. You know, if by mid-afternoon you're calling for help because something's happened, it takes time for our team to mobilize and get out to you, and that process it takes a little bit of time. We move as quickly as we can, but it does take time, and darkness appears very, very quickly at this time of year. So the possibility of spending an extended evening outside or potentially overnight is quite high. So just having the right gear to be comfortable out there is really, really important. It also, from our perspective, sort of reduces the stress level from the rescuer's perspective and our aircraft perspective. If we know that you've got the gear to be out there for an extended period of time, we don't have the same kind of pressure to actually feel obligated to sort of rush to get you because you don't have the right gear to look after yourself. That just increases the stress level and the pressure for us to try and achieve the objective. In aviation, we often say aviate, navigate, communicate. You guys, we don't expect you guys to aviate when you're out there, but navigating and communicating are two things that you can do to help us to find you. So if you do have cell service, you can always call 911, and that person, either dispatcher on the line, can use your phone to help you. So they can actually pull GPS coordinates or ask you to send them GPS coordinates now from the phone, which is really impressive technology. But that does require cell phone signal, so that can be a limitation. And as I said earlier, having things like inReaches and sat phones and things like that, and knowing how to use them can do something similar. Ultimately, to find you guys, we're looking for GPS coordinates if we need to. So I know that there's a bunch of different variations on how you can actually read and write GPS coordinates down, and we don't need to get into that too much. If you can provide something and a rough idea of where you are, then it's a hugely beneficial thing. But being able to get GPS coordinates from your device and transfer them to someone who can help is key, and that's things like inReaches and whatnot that can do that. I think Sandra mentioned earlier too about creating a trip plan. So for us, even if we don't know exactly where you are, if you've submitted and filed a trip plan and said, I'm going to be hiking this trail at this time of the afternoon, we can fly out there, we can locate your car in the parking lot from the air, and we can actually start following a specific trail and dropping people at the bottom, at the top, midpoint, and we can actually start spreading out. If that information that you've submitted in your trip plan is accurate, that will help us to at least start looking. Without even GPS coordinates, we can do quite a lot, but without that information, it makes our life really challenging. So yeah, lots of stuff in there that can help us. We use GPSs almost exclusively in the aircraft to navigate. So that's our primary means of navigation for sure. So lastly, if anyone has any questions, hopefully I haven't put you guys to sleep too much, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer those. Beyond that, you guys certainly can get a hold of me. I am on some of the social media platforms. I try and put some content out there when I get time, on LinkedIn, Instagram, things like that. There's some information there as well. So if anyone would like to contact me through either of those channels, they are welcome to as well, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. And then, as we've seen already, the AdventureSmart guys also do some phenomenal work on social media, putting lots of great content out there to absorb lots of really useful stuff, and the trip planning app, which I think is going into, if it isn't already in the chat today. But that's all the content I've got from me, and yeah, happy to answer questions if anyone has any.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rob. Yeah, we have a nice stacked deck of questions here.
Yeah, no doubt.
This is coming from, so we have Elizabeth, Shannon, and Chris are asking, what is the best color of clothing to be wearing out there?
Yeah,
or whatever. What is the most visible?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it depends on the time of year. Right now, you know, like those light yellows and stuff like that maybe aren't so good when you're contrasting against snow. But in the wintertime, or in the summertime, sorry, in the mountains, yellow can be quite good. Bright colors are typically best. There isn't really a one size fits all answer to that, but bright colors and contrasting colors. So in the fall time, you know, I have a bright orange Arc'teryx jacket. Even our search and rescue guys wear like a fairly like light yellow orange kind of jacket, and in the fall time that's a real challenge, but the rest of the year it's amazing. So yeah, there isn't really a one size fits all answer, unfortunately, but bright contrasting colors are the most generic answer I can give. That hopefully that helps a little bit.
Perfect. This is a great question from Ben. Do you guys use Reco? He heard that they heard that SARS used it, and it can be an easy way to detect in the forest and mountainous areas.
Yeah, we do have some of that technology for sure. I know that there are teams out there that have the version that attaches to the end of a long line or a hoist, and we can actually go out there and search with that. Blackcomb also has a handheld version that we can use to get out there from the aircraft and utilize as well. And then we also have some resources up in Whistler that do have the ability to track that as well. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's not foolproof by any means, but it's certainly a useful tool for sure.
Excellent. And this is a really great question from one of your fellow panelists, from Natalie. How do you build this level of trust with your colleague, the pilot, when doing a rescue such as the one showed in the video, so close to a rock face? Do you do practices and swap roles?
Yeah, honestly, it's a strange idea, but yeah, we absolutely do. So honestly, the only way you can build trust to do stuff like this is just lots and lots and lots of repetition. And you know, everyone has an individual personality, and we do have strict procedures and kind of techniques and rules that we follow when we're flying. But the more I get to fly with all our individual pilots and the more they get to fly with me and the other hoist operators that we have, you do build a rapport with those pilots. And part of the reason why I think we have such a great program that we have is because we do get to spend a lot of time flying together, and we understand the way that they talk, and when they're stressed or when they're worried about something or when they think things are going well, you know, we can start to read their body language and they can read mine and understand when things are going well. It's a huge trust thing. It's unbelievable for a pilot to be able to hold the hover and have the aircraft control that they do just by listening to what I'm saying to them. I certainly don't take that privilege lightly, that they put their trust in me to basically get these people down onto some unbelievably technical places, and to be able to do it so precisely is largely, almost exclusively, the pilot, to be honest. It's really impressive. So the swap roles part, yeah, the pilots do get a chance to get into the back and actually, you know, step into my shoes for a little bit, and every now and then I'll actually get into the front as well and just get to see what they're experiencing, and when I'm saying something, what they need to do to for us to work together to achieve the goal. It's really valuable, and we do that a little bit, yeah, for sure.
Excellent. And maybe just a little bit lighter side of that relationship. Angela's asking, do you guys have nicknames for each other?
No, well, yeah, maybe some that we shouldn't be sharing on online for sure, but yeah, there is some nicknames and whatnot that we throw around out there for sure. Yeah, it's a great team atmosphere here. We're definitely a nice tight unit, and we have to spend a lot of time together. So yeah, we get along pretty well. It's a great bunch of guys for sure.
Awesome. So we've just got just being cognizant of time, we have a couple more questions here. This is a really important question from Paul. If you get injured and need rescue, does it cost the patient, or does the provincial government cover the cost? Yeah. I'm just going to start that off. Yeah, we know there is no cost to the patient. I'll let Rob talk a little bit more about that, and I'm going to throw a link in our chat from our BC Search and Rescue Association that just talks all about their reasoning of why we never charge for rescue.
Yeah, a very long potential answer to what is really a pretty basic one. No, there's no charge for search and rescue in BC. So Blackcomb Helicopters, who I work for, I'm employed by, there's salaries, there's wages, there is a cost associated with on that end. Our services are provided to the provincial government, and they pay for us to go and do the work, but the provincial government will never ask the person being rescued for money. No.
Yeah, excellent. And then this is a great question to sign off with from Greg. How do you signal to a helicopter that you're not the one in need of rescue?
Yeah, great question. It's challenging, to be honest, especially if you don't know. The best thing you can do, honestly, is not do the things that we just discussed from my perspective anyway. Stand out in the middle of a wide open area and wave and make a scene. If you don't want that aircraft, the quick and easy answer, I guess, is if you don't want that aircraft to pay any attention to you, don't make yourself obvious to them. It can be a challenge at times, and for us, we usually have a pretty good idea of what we're looking for specifically and where that is. And the beauty of, in my perspective anyway, having that hoist is that the worst case scenario, it takes us 60 seconds to get a rescuer down to the ground. They can actually chat with you and ask that question and say, hey, are you in need of help or not? And we can actually bring that rescuer back up to the aircraft. But it's a bit of a game of charades at times, trying to figure out what is what. And there are some very there is some documented and sort of distributed official signals for I don't need help, but the reality is the expectation that most people won't know them, and honestly, from our perspective, we may not know which one you're particularly trying to use either. So it's a bit of a game of charades at times, for sure. But yeah, good question. It's a problem for sure.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. Oh, Tyler, just before we put off here, Tyler has put in the ACMG resource here in the chat, in the questions. So I will just reply to Tyler, and we can see. There you go. So the link should be in the questions. Everybody can see there. But yeah, once again, Rob, thank you so much for your time this evening and that great perspective of what it's like to hang off the side of those super awesome machines. I got the pleasure to come and hang out with Rob a couple summers ago and check out the hangar, and he let me sit in the pilot seat of the very nice rescue chopper, and I felt like the kid in the fire truck. It was the best thing ever. So thanks again for that amazing experience, because it's 2 years later and I still talk about it. So
yeah,
don't
worry, I feel the same way. It's all good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Rob. That was great. It was great to see you again. And Natasha did talk about that sit in the helicopter for a while, let me tell you. So it did bring a smile to her face. Some great information there in the chat. Natasha was able to fire off some great links from Reco to our Trip Plan app to No Charge for Rescue. That's a big one. That comes up every single time there's a call. There's a group of people out there that are very passionate that some subjects should be charged. There's a number of people out there that don't think they should. And BC Search and Rescue Association stance and statement of no charge for rescue is easily easily read there from the link. So have a peek at that and see the reasonings why. The short version is that they know there'll be a delay in that call, and any delay in any search and rescue call isn't great. Rob shared some excellent insights, literally great points from his perspective, from his work, literally his paid work, his volunteer work, his unpaid work, volunteerism, and it really captures and I think sums up our evening. And before we go, let's do that draw prize. So hopefully you got your fingers ready. Hopefully you remembered a few things of what everyone said tonight. We're going to go all the way back to Corey's presentation at the beginning of the session tonight, so about an hour and a half ago. And he let us know what the minimum distance your Avalanche transceiver should be away from any of your devices on you. Can you let us know? Type in the chat the answer. The first one to give us the correct one, Natasha's going to read out the name, and you will win a pair of Trail Crampon Ultra microspikes, and they are an XL, by the way. So hopefully that works for you, or they could be a wonderful gift. And so what's the minimum distance that transceiver should be away from any of your electronic devices on you, in your pockets, in your bag? Natasha?
Yep. So we have the fastest fingers in the evening is actually our friend Tyler Dixon, who just shared that last public resource as well, with 30 centimeters. So Tyler Dixon is the lucky winner of the XL crampons. Tyler, if you could send us an email, info@adventuresmartbc.ca, and we'll get you all set up with your trail crampons. I just want to say thanks everybody for being with us this evening, just cognizant of the time. I will hand it over to Sandra to finish off, and I will close the webinar.
Thanks, Natasha. Great as always. Good group tonight. This is our third session over these 2 weeks here to kick off winter with you on these rainy, stormy nights. It's snowing up high. We're excited to get out there in all forms with all our great friends. And the whole idea of this is so that you reach your destination, and your destination is always home. And by coming tonight, you're helping yourself, your family, your friends, but you are helping those 3,000 volunteers like Rob and the others by being more prepared, more knowledgeable and experienced, and just gaining these little insights from these special guests with our information so it can make your trip a safer one. If you're into snowmobiling or not, you want to join us again this Thursday, same time, same channel, everything. You can register the same way. It's all about snowmobiling this Thursday. And then we go into our regular curriculum of snow safety, and that one will kick off December 23rd, right before Christmas. And we'll offer those to you. Natasha and I will be back to talk about snow safety education, backcountry. It's all fun. It's all about the 3 T's, what to do in an emergency. It's a great thing. Corey, Natalie, and Rob, thank you again. It's been wonderful. We wish everyone a safe and enjoyable winter. Happy holidays, by the way. I think we're allowed to say that now. It's into this month. And we really appreciate your time tonight. Take care, everyone. Good night.